Hello and welcome back to Raw 12:51 AM and the Warwick F1 show as we dive into the Qatar Grand Prix, the inaugural Qatar Grand Prix in Lusail, in the desert, in the night. It's the same as ever. But obviously I can't do it on my own, so I'm joined with my ever-present guest. I may as well introduce you as a double act now. I've got my co-host Jack and my buddy, my student, my friend, my buddy, my raw buddy, Chinmay. How are you doing both?
I'm not too bad. I'm still happy that I haven't missed a single minute of the Warwick F1 show yet, so we're going to try and keep that up at least until the term ends.
Yeah, you're doing better than I am. I've missed a few minutes, especially, last week. Sorry about that, but it means I can decide who wins the predictions this time. Chinmay, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Unfortunately, I'm not doing as well as you guys in terms of keeping up with this F1 show, but I'm here today, so...
Well, we're the hosts. We sort of have to be here.
Yeah.
So, as ever, we'll start with our ratings out of 10. We'll come to me last, but first, I guess we'll go to Chinmay. What would you give this race out of 10?
I would give it a 6. It wasn't the best race in the world, but it wasn't bad. And I think considering my expectations for this weekend, it was a good race on the road, so I'll give it a solid 6.
All right, 6 out of 10. Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to have to kind of go... I have to agree, because it just wasn't like... I know people want to say 5 is the average, right? But we tend to go on the upper side of things. And there wasn't anything really terrible about it. The overtaking was better than expected. So I think I'm going to have to agree. I'm going to have to go with a 6 as well.
See, now I don't want to go for a 6, but it just was... It was the average race. It wasn't like bad. It wasn't like a Monaco. Like, it just was quite average. Like, there was enough action to talk about, and we will talk about it. There was enough, like, intrigue in the championship and things like that. But it wasn't one of the spectacular ones. It wasn't oh god, what races were good? It wasn't a Brazil. Like, we go back to last week, the drama of Brazil. That was one of the best races of the season. And I guess it wasn't like the other desert race that we've had in Bahrain at the start of the season. So I think probably it would have to be a 6 out of 10. I think when we do our race rankings at the end of the season, I think it's going to be fairly middle of the pack, maybe even lower, because to be honest, we've had a lot of races this season that have been above average. But obviously, we'll go chronologically as we always do, starting with, well, there wasn't really anything before qualifying, was there? It wasn't like Brazil. I'm just trying to remember now.
I don't think so.
No, I think it was just more rumblings on about the Mercedes rear wing.
Yeah, we were still going on about the Verstappen incident.
Oh yes,
that was like, it doesn't feel like Qatar because we're still talking about Brazil, but yeah, that was going on.
Honestly, the days are blurring into one, and I'm forgetting all of it. But yes, so after obviously the controversial incident in Brazil, Mercedes asked for a right to review. So I think there's a bit of confusion about what this is. So a right to review is the right to look at the incident again. It doesn't determine guilt. If you get the right to review, it doesn't mean the incident's 100% going to be a penalty. They'll just look at it again and decide what they are. They'll just look at it again. And then, so Mercedes put that in on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday.
I think it must have been Monday, because we did the Warwick F1 show Tuesday last week.
Oh yeah, and we were talking about
it then.
Yeah, so we mentioned that on Monday and Tuesday. It comes to Friday morning for us, just before practice. Oh no, it was between practice 1 and practice 2, or after practice 2 or something. The right to review is denied because the FIA, what was the wording of the FIA? They said there was new evidence, but it wasn't, I think, substantial in this case. Obviously, the new evidence being the front, the onboard camera, the front camera, the one we all know. Correct decision? What do you think?
Tough on the call, but I would probably say there's not really much point in investigating the incident. I mean, really, it's been a week since the incident, and to be fair, if the incident was investigated there and then during the race itself, or even just after the race, I would 100% penalise Max for pushing Lewis off the track. But I feel like this, I mean, of course it was a controversial move and it's not the cleanest of defences by any means, but I do feel that if I was kind of right, that they shouldn't have really have investigated it much further, even though at the end of the day they should at least had a look at the incident again.
Okay, Jack?
Yeah, God. I think the correct decision would have been to penalise him in the first place, but the issue is that the stewarding changes between races, right?
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of confusion in the Qatar Grand Prix in driver briefings and something, because I think what Lewis Hamilton said at least, and Verstappen pretty much admitted was the case, was they said that if anyone does that again, they will be penalised. But Verstappen wasn't. So, I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess. What can you say? I mean, of course, I think it should be a penalty. So I still think it should be a penalty. But the way that the FIA runs and the fact there's different stewards every race, and I assume there's different stewards in between races as well, looking at different things. They want to be consistent. However, the fact that they've released they've released that information to the public, or at least Lewis has, it's all chaos. I hate it all.
Yeah, I think it just seems to be that there wasn't enough. And to be honest, it might matter in the end. Probably will. It's probably realistic. If Verstappen wins the championship, it's probably going to be less than the 5 points he gained at Belgium. But if Hamilton wins, it's going to be less than Britain or Hungary or whatever. There are about 20 different incidents this season that could have decided the championship. So we can't really blame one of them. But we'll come back to stewarding and what we think about it, because obviously in qualifying there was another incident. So we have Q1, Q2, same as ever, bit boring, don't you really need to watch it. Well, actually, so Perez and Leclerc were going out, bit of a surprise. But other than that, so going into the final runs of Q3, and I thought it was quite funny, because Crofty and Brundle were saying about how Hamilton goes early, and obviously you don't get the track evolution, but you stay out of the way. And then 2 minutes later, Gasly goes and bins it on one of the curves, ripping off his front wing and damaging his tyre, and is trundling down the front pit straight. And then it gets a bit confusing, because the drivers get a little yellow light on their wheel to tell them when the yellow flags are out, and then I think there's something else, but I can't. Well,
the yellow panels that flash up on the side as well. So
there's panels as well, but as we see 5 drivers, I want to say, go past at certain points. Actually, no, it's 7 in the end, because it's all of these. Because Gasly, I think, was 3rd out of the garage, part off behind his teammate Tsunoda and Hamilton, obviously. So 7 drivers go past in the end. 2 of them, Alonso and Vettel, lift off. 2, Sainz lifts off, but later. And then Norris, Bottas, Verstappen, and I guess Ocon sort of proceed as normal. But it ends up being, and I think it ends up being those 4 that go to the stewards. But then it ends up being only Verstappen and Bottas are given penalties. Verstappen a 5-place grid penalty for not respecting double wave yellows. And Boris? No, I sort of
have you been invading the politics?
Yeah, I sort of just combined Bottas and Norris in my head. But yeah, Bottas gets a 3-place grid penalty for single wave yellows. On the face of it, that's fine. We've seen incidents in the past. I think the one that everyone mentioned was Austria. Was it? It wasn't Austria this year. It was Austria last year, wasn't it? With Hamilton.
No, you're
it was Austria with Hamilton. I think. Verstappen in Mexico as well.
With Bottas going across the grass, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, that was.
Yeah, I think that was last year.
It was last year. Yeah.
Yeah, Verstappen in Mexico as well. 2019 gets Bottas crashes. Verstappen gets pole, but then gets penalised because he's gone fast. So on the face of it, it's fine. Stewards have done their job, but I'll come to you, Chinmay. It's the confusion aspect, because there's only one flag that's being waved. There's one panel that's flashing. It catches Verstappen. It catches Bottas. It doesn't catch anyone else. They don't get penalties.
Yeah.
It was just a really confusing situation, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, it's not just that. It's like, where is it double yellows? Where is it single yellows? How, and the drivers are going so fast around the circuit as well. It's like, the time that the drivers have to try and figure out whether it is a single or double yellow flag, it's very difficult. I mean, I know they're professional drivers, they're used to that sort of speeds, but at the end of the day, it's still difficult for them to, try and figure out which one it is as well. But yeah, it's just a whole confusing aspect about what was and what wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, Jack, do you think the penalties were justified in the end?
I mean, I think there's an issue in F1 about drivers not slowing down for yellows. I think, yes, they need to be far more strict, or we need to have a system that's as simple as if there is, yellow flags in the wave sector, it needs to be like categorical. So your lap is deleted and 3 minutes are added onto quali, 2 minutes are added into quali, whatever. Or we need something where it's just like black and white, because asking drivers to lift off, of course they're going to push it, aren't they? They're drivers, that's what they're there for, and they don't really care about penalties at the time, as we've seen. So yes, I think there needs to be more safety around it. I think given that the legislation in place, it was a good idea to penalise those two drivers, but I think something more needs to be done.
I think the problem was that it didn't seem like the FIA knew whether to throw a yellow flag or not, because on the face of it, it looked very yellow flaggy. That is the technical term for it. Like, you've got a driver that spilt debris all over what is quite a quick second to last corner, and then quite a quick final corner, and is trundling down the inside of the pit straight at like quite a slow speed. That looks like a slam dunk yellow flag. And I think even like Crofty and Brundle were saying, well, I think they were expecting it to be a yellow flag. But then you see on the timing graphics, no yellow flag pops up, but then one does pop up, and then like things like that. It was just confusing, and I think that's the problem with it. I think if it was cut and dry, then it would be a bit easier.
Yeah, but I mean, in situations like that, drivers are never going to err on the side of caution, are they? If they have any excuse for going flat out, they will. So yes, the FIA do need to be much more clear about where it should be, but they need to have those rules in place so that the drivers kind of have an incentive to try and protect themselves and other drivers who might be in trouble. So
yeah, but I guess what I'm sort of trying to get at is coming back to the stewarding, because obviously after the last three races, we've seen the Brazil incident, we've seen the Brazil incident not get reviewed, and then we've seen this, which has just been really haphazard with how the yellow flags have been thrown, because they are there for safety, and we don't want it to be iffy on like whether it really is, like, it is an issue. We need to have clarity to know when a yellow flag goes out. Do you think there needs to be changes with the stewarding? I've always found it really weird that we have different stewarding teams for different races. Why is there not a stewarding team that goes with the FIA? Why don't they have their own 12 jurors to decide, I think, is my question. So do you think there needs to be a change?
I mean, yeah, I probably agree with it. There needs to be at least some sort of there needs to be a lot more consistency with the FIA stewarding. I mean, I feel that the FIA just needs to make sure that they lay more rigid rules in terms of the yellow flags, and then be able to do some like what you suggested, like the same stewards for each race. But yeah, I mean, it's just really, really confusing to see how inconsistent the stewarding has been. I think we've really seen in the last couple of races, especially with Brazil and the yellow flags here.
I think that is the thing, because it would introduce a level of consistency if you had the same team. They'd be dealing with incidents. So we've had incidents as varied. So we've had even if we just use the top two as an example, they've almost come together. Or Imola, Italy the first time, Spain, Brazil. I feel like there was one more somewhere.
Silverstone.
Silverstone.
They actually
yeah,
came
yeah.
together.
So and then they actually came together at
sorry.
Silverstone and Italy. But again, so there's the first time and then there's the second time. Like, do you think that these incidents would be ruled on in a more consistent way if you had just one team of stewards?
Yeah, I think I still have no idea why there's a different team of stewards. I'm sure they can afford to fly people out. And you think in kind of bubble land that we're supposed to be living in, or F1 is supposed to be living in, that you just have a consistent team. But I guess I really don't know. I don't know how many people are interchanged, because there is some continuity, I'm sure.
Well, there's obviously Michael Massey's the FIA director, and I assume he has like a role to play in it. But it just seems strange that you wouldn't have like the same people adjudicating on the decisions. Obviously, change them. Like, you could even change them halfway through the year. Like, even if you wanted a bit of like just change, but tell the teams that, new stewards probably is going to mean that some of the things that maybe were marginal but given penalties are now going to be marginal but not given penalties. So there's obviously going to be change with every incident, because it's always different.
I feel like there might be some bizarre inspiration from like other professional sports leagues where the referee changes every match, or umpire or whatever. But the thing about that is that their job is not just safety, it's like specific rules as well, and things are generally more cut and dry, especially in things like tennis. But the thing about that is there are 23 F1 races a year, however many, which, although we complain about it being too many, when you look at it in compared to 380 Premier League games a year, is, I do think it's realistic to be able to have a team of 6, 8, 10 stewards and bring them all to every race, because every team has to travel, right? It's not this head-to-head battle. They just have to be there. They do a job all year long, and surely there is, surely that would be cheaper for them as well. Like, how much do you have to pay one steward if they're coming to one race versus the whole season?
Well, it would be a job, wouldn't it? And I'm sure you would always want at least a few like older drivers, like retired drivers, because as we've seen with a lot of like the insights, so Jolyon Palmer's a brilliant, he wasn't necessarily the best driver, but he's really good at like giving that insight. Sky F1, they've got Damon Hill, Paul di Resta, Johnny Herbert, Martin Brundle's on co-commentary. So we want that, but you also want like a balance of people that have always just been in the rules, been in the bureaucracy. And I think it just doesn't make sense why we wouldn't want that consistency.
I mean, I can say it better myself, to be fair. But it's just the fact is there's so many controversies this year could have just been avoided if we had a lot more consistent stewarding. I mean, like I said, it's just not the same team. As long as if the same groundwork of rules are just applied in every single race, because for some reason, I don't know, the rules seem to be very, very blurred in terms of how things are investigated.
I really genuinely can't think of any reason why it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
If we come up with one, I'll tell you in 3 years' time when I think of it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
It's cut and dry, isn't it?
Well, let's hope we don't get any more controversial decisions, but as the title's getting closer and closer, I'm sure we will. Join us after the break as we discuss the race as a whole, including the interesting starting grid, the start, and all that happened in between. To Raw 12:51 AM and the Warwick F1 show, as we're looking at race day at Dubai now. Qatar. Where's Dubai? Dubai's in the UAE. We're going there in 3 weeks' time. But first, we've got Qatar, we've got Losail, and we've got the starting grid for the race. I mean, I can't remember one that looks so confusing.
I think half the reason it was so confusing is because we didn't hear about it until about an hour before the race.
That is a good point. So normally they're meant to have a provisional grid for 4 hours, and then the grid is fixed an hour before. We hadn't had the penalties 4 hours before, and then even 1 hour before there was a change from the provisional to the actual starting grid and Sainz and Bottas flipped. Like no one really knew what was going on, did they?
Nah, not really. I just saw the chaos. Like, where is Max starting? Where is Bottas starting? What's happening to Sainz? And it's just a lot of stuff happening. And at the same time, it's like, what's happening?
We knew where Hamilton was starting, and we knew where Mazepin was starting, and that was about it.
That's about it. And then it ended up being Hamilton, Gasly, first AlphaTauri first front row for the base since Seb in 2008. Alonso, then Norris, who somehow got up to 7th. I swear he was nowhere for most of the like qualifying, and then somehow started 4th.
Yeah, no, he was, because Daniel was like 13th or something like that, at least when he qualified. Yeah, the McLaren was not great this week, was it?
We'll talk about McLaren a bit later. So Norris 4th, Sainz 5th. Then it's Bottas and Verstappen, and then I think Ocon, but that's about it. That's all I need to say. Can you think of a grid that been that topsy-turvy? I think Hungary, if they'd all started, would have been a bit like that.
Turkey last year?
Turkey, yeah, that'll be it. Yep. So Turkey was like the 2 racing points. Verstappen, I think Hamilton...
I think Hamilton was 4th.
Yeah.
No, I think Hamilton was...
I think he was 4th, wasn't it?
I'm gonna have to look this up now.
Because I remember the two Renaults, as they were then, were quite high up, because it was Hamilton driving up the inside of Ricciardo that clipped Ocon and then sent Bottas for the first of his 54 million spins that day. But yes, I think Turkey was the last one. I think had Hungary, they'd all lined up, it would have looked like that, especially with Hamilton and Ocon as 1-2. I still can't get over that Hungary race, just like seeing Hamilton just on the grid on his own. It's the funniest thing. But yeah, so we get that start, and then the start is started, and Verstappen takes about 7 seconds before he gets into P2. So it's like he starts 7th, and we think, oh, it might be exciting. He's there within, I think it's 5 laps, which to give him credit is very impressive. Like, he gets up to, I want to say 4th after lap 1.
Yeah, he was 4th by the end of turn 2 or something like that, after almost hitting Alonso.
And then just dispatches Alonso and Gasly. Well, Gasly's not going to get in his way, is he?
Yeah.
So gets up to 2nd. Bottas, however, messes up again, drops to 11th, which is a bit disappointing. Because we thought it was going to be 2 versus 1 yesterday, and then it just ended up being 1v1.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anything, it was kind of... I think Perez could have got up there. It was never quite going to be 2v1, but there was a chance there, especially if he didn't hit right at the end. But I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's about it for the start. I can't think of anything else.
You want the grid for Turkey? I've put it up.
Yeah, go on.
So it was Stroll, Verstappen, then Perez, Albon, Ricciardo, Hamilton 6th, Ocon, Raikkonen, Bottas, and then Giovinazzi.
That is a weird grid.
It was a weird
grid. So we
grid.
got 2 racing points, 2 Renaults, 2 Alphas.
Yes, in the top 10.
Oh, 2 Mercedes and 2 Red Bull. That's 2 by 2. Yeah, that's a weird one. And then I hadn't really clocked how bad the Ferrari was last year, because they got nowhere, but obviously got up there in the end. So get the start, get the typical 2021 boring middle third. Like it is just a thing now, isn't it? Like the races, it seems like every single race, even the exciting ones, have a boring lap 2 to whatever about 33% is.
So you need a Hamilton charging through from the back, don't you? I mean, what other ones have we had like completely mental?
Well, Brazil was mental.
Yep.
But fairly dull in the middle third.
Yeah, and then other than that, it's been if it's wet, basically.
Yeah. Even Hungary, that was a good race, and it was still fairly, because Hamilton was stuck behind the McLaren and only got past him after the pit stops. It does seem that we're getting a formula for these races where it will be a good and a reasonably interesting start. Boring first third, and then it might build up, it might come down. And, I mean, it's fine. You can't have excitement at every possible turn. So we'll just bypass that third. And then we'll come to the middle point of the race, which was probably kicked off dramatically by a Valtteri Bottas puncture. He's trying to go 33 laps on the mediums. I think, I was saying this while we were watching it, I think he's trying to gap Alonso by a pit stop at that point, because he was about, I want to say, 22 seconds. So if he can get those 2 more, there's at least a touch and go chance.
Yeah.
But then gets that puncture. What was your reaction when you saw it?
I mean, I was watching on highlights again, unfortunately, but the 34 laps was over the 30 laps, wasn't it? So, and
it was on the mediums as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I think my reaction was more like, okay, is this, if then they said, oh, Pirelli said it should have been only 30 laps. I was like, why didn't you tell me this earlier? Did Mercedes know this? But they did. So, I mean, obviously they took a gamble. They knew they shouldn't have gone more than that, and they paid the price. Yeah, it just happens sometimes.
And we'll talk about the rest of the punctures as well. So the 2 Williams get punctures on back-to-back laps. Norris gets one, but manages to pit just before it starts to have an effect. And then Norris especially comes out at the end of the race and sort of blames Pirelli, which I think in this case is really harsh. Like, the teams were pushing it.
I mean, the Pirelli did say don't go for one stop because of tyre deck and stuff like that, and as well as the lethal curbs on the Losail track, and the teams pretty much ignored it. I mean, Norris did try to say that it wasn't the team's fault. The teams did pretty much ignore what Pirelli said to not go for a one-stopper. But some people did make it at the end.
Yeah.
But
You've got to listen to Pirelli sometimes, especially with those seemingly deceptively, like, injury-prone, or how they could just damage the car, the curbs, and the tyres especially. You can't expect the tyres to last forever. Like, you've got to, if Pirelli is saying 30 laps, I know there's sometimes been a bit of leeway, but it's a track we don't know about, so they're not guessing, but they've just not got as much information. And, like, they should probably just listen to them.
Yeah, so the thing is with the Pirelli tyres is that I think your perfect tyre is one that works for a certain amount and then just kind of falls off the cliff, right? And that provides the incentive for the teams to pit rather than having people puncture, because that's a danger. But the issue is with cars getting heavier and heavier, that's not so much of an issue. That's not so much of a possibility. So I think in some ways Pirelli have managed it, but we see the teams are able to work around those tyres that are just kind of threadbare, like we saw Ocon at it was Turkey again, wasn't it? Yeah, so I think that's a factor. So you do have to listen to what they say. However, one part where I won't agree with Chinmay is the hard tyres. They said would go 40 laps.
Did they?
I think so. I think it was mediums. They said 30 maximum, and hards they said 40 maximum.
Yeah, I remember that now in the race.
And 40. I'm pretty sure none of the third, 2, 3, and 4 tyre failures happened outside of those 40 laps. So yes, they got that wrong.
But even then, you've got to think it's a track that we've never been to before.
I wouldn't have expected the hards to be quite that bad.
Yeah,
do you know what compounds we were on? We were on the hardest.
Was the 3, 2, and 1, so the hardest.
Yeah. Okay.
3.
Yeah, tough track.
I think it was. I just think Losail in general was a track that not a lot of teams really expected to be the way it was. Overtaking was a lot easier. Following seemed to be a lot easier. The curbs were, like, most people were thinking, oh, it's a track designed for MotoGP. They don't like curbs for obvious reasons. Like, the curbs are going to be fairly innocuous. But then you go over them and they're ripping off front wings in qualifying. They're giving punctures during the race.
No, so the little bits outside the curbing. Because the thing about MotoGP is the tyres are about, I'm trying to show 3-4 inches wide. So if they go, if they go over the white line, they're only going over it by 3 or 4 inches. But cars are a bit wider than bikes, Who would have guessed?
Yeah, so I think this isn't like a Baku incident where those tyres failed almost inexplicably, like Stroll and Verstappen. They were well within their window. We've been there a few times, so there's knowledge about how far the tyres should go, and then they just fail out of nowhere. This was more of probably just an inexperience thing, and the teams were pushing it, and I think just a lack of knowledge has to be the primary cause. And I imagine Pirelli are going to do checks. They're going to make sure it doesn't work. But I think the tyres in general this season have been some of the, since probably 20, I'd say even the current wide cars, the tyres have all been fairly adequate. They've been, maybe they're a bit too durable. Maybe they need to find a way of making it so it's not performance, drop off a cliff, but it's a constant decline in performance, but maybe a bit quicker than, so we get 2 stops and 3 stops instead of 1 stops and 2 stops for a bit of variety. But other than that, I've been pretty happy with how the tyres have been, especially if we compare it to the early Pirelli days where it went 5 stop strategies and you can do 10 laps without the tyres having to come in again to pit. So I don't know what you two think about the current generation of tyres in general.
I think the tyres are pretty much as good as they can be. In a way, I would agree that we need more 2-stop races. 3 may be pushing it a bit much, but I think definitely more 2-stop races would definitely be a lot better for the racing, in terms of sport, in terms of strategy for people. And yeah, I think in the last 2 years there's only been about 3 incidents of tyres failing, but then and the only real unexplainable one really was, the most unexplainable one you can process, was Baku. Silverstone last year with Hamilton, Bottas, and I think one other, Sainz got it as well. I think that was mainly because the tyres were literally overdone than what was expected, and just the tyre drag was much higher than what people were expecting in that race. But yeah, I think there's just the tyres I think are good enough. There's not really too much to complain about them.
Yeah, I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. It's because the cars are heavy. I don't think Pirelli have done a bad job. They've been given more and more work to do progressively as we add more to that weight limit, more force, more speed. It's just more difficult to get that perfect tyre balance. And
they've always done what they've been told to do. Sometimes, and it's normally what they've been told to do that's been wrong. And I just think Pirelli are good, and the amount of testing they've done for their new tyres, the 18-inch rims, you'd think that we're going to go to next season and be quite happy with how the tyres are going to look.
Hopefully. I think it's going to change more to do with the suspension, to do with the ride height, the way the cars corner. So I think hopefully the tyres themselves shouldn't be too affected.
Okay. Yeah. Or it might make curbs a bit more uncomfortable if you're not going over them with that added cushion. But we'll take another break here. We'll come back, talk about the end of the race, talk about how it all eventually panned out after the punctures. Yes, this is Raw 12:51 AM, and we're back for the next segment of the Warwick F1 show, looking at Qatar. We've been saying during the break, there's surprisingly little to talk about, despite the fact the race wasn't terrible. It's just there wasn't really much going on. I think that's the conclusion we came to. But we say that, and then you get to the end, and there's a few ongoing battles that eventually got resolved, and we may as well start with the first two. Obviously not Hamilton and Verstappen here. They were off in a league of their own. It was ridiculous how far those two were ahead. I think, they pitted one extra time and still finished almost a minute ahead of Alonso.
It was something like that.
Yeah.
I think you said it right. It's the Qatar Grand Prix.
Yeah. I didn't mind it, but it's one of those you just won't watch again. I think that's the best way of putting it. And you didn't actively like it, you didn't actively dislike it, like Monaco, that race. It's genuinely the worst. I think that's the worst F1 race I've ever watched, that race in Monaco.
Yeah.
There was one overtake and they couldn't even get that on the TV.
Qualifying was alright, but yeah, race-wise,
it always is.
Race-wise, shocking.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But back to the Middle East. So, we ignore Hamilton and Verstappen, League of Their Own, and we'll come to them later. But we get to third and fourth, and third, the return of Fernando Alonso onto the podium for the first time in 7 years. Not quite the longest not quite the longest gap in terms of time, but the longest. But you go and guess.
Oh no! Don't ask me that. Okay.
Guess the driver who holds the longest gap in terms of time. This is definitely not something I was googling instantly after the race.
Is it Michael Schumacher?
It's not. Okay. It's Alexander Wirtz, apparently.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure when his podiums were. Schumacher, I think, is up there. Because he was 2006 to 2012, so that'll be 6 years.
Okay, I didn't remember when he got his first podium when he came back. So.
Yeah, it was Valencia 2012. Would have been on pole at Monaco 2012, but he had a penalty. Very sad. But yeah, for longest gap, or not quite the longest gap in terms of time, longest gap in terms of races though. So gets a record. And I don't know about you, that was easily driver of the day. I'm very it's the best driver. He qualifies third. He finishes third. Compare it to Gasly, who finishes 12th, 11th. He's miles off the pace. He holds behind. He holds Perez behind him for enough time, and then puts the tyres off enough. That's just a stand-up performance, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he just did everything he needed to do in the race. He managed it perfectly. He pretty much done everything he needed to. He's 40 and he's still got, and even given a front runner car, he could probably still fight for championships at this point if he showed the skills he was showing on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say how fast that Alpine is. I think it's definitely faster than it was right at the start of the season, right? And we saw Ocon in P5, and okay, yeah, he wasn't quite the same as Alonso, but I think those two are really hard to place. We had this trouble when we went through the power rankings, right? Where have we put him? We've put Alonso in 11th.
Oh yeah, we got slated for that on the chat.
Yeah, but it's really difficult to say where that Alpine is.
Yeah. Because there's some races. Well, the Alpine was probably the third fastest car this race. Would you say?
I mean, everything in my body says no. That can't be right. But
I'm not allowed opinions as the host, but I would say it was the third fastest car this year.
I can't dispute that.
Yeah.
There is nothing. There's no counter argument in my mind,
and
it just seems wrong.
He qualifies third in the end, and just like I said before, he manages the race really well. He's just there. He was sort of in that no man's land that we've established, where Hamilton and Verstappen run off. I think they'd gained a 25-second margin after about 14 laps. It was ridiculous how quick those two were. But then Alonso, he just drives and then gets there in the end.
Oh, yeah, it was just a brilliant drive at the end of the day. I mean, like I said, it's just amazing to just see how much faster the two front runs of this championship are, and then just to see how good the racing in the midfield was this season, and just to see Alonso just come up, just do the job he needed to. Yeah,
and would he have got third if the driver in fourth, Perez, hadn't pitted? So Perez gets past Alonso, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Perez gets past Alonso, then pits, which seemed like an odd, like what was it? I think there were about 18 laps to go. Perez would have had to get through Stroll, Ocon, and would have been Norris, but then he pits for his puncture. It's an odd and then even so he was still behind Ocon with I think 15 laps to go, 15 seconds. Then he gets past Ocon. He is closing on Alonso, and it would have been close. But what do you think? Do you think Perez would have got him without the VSC as well that came out for Latifi?
I'm thinking eventually Perez might at least fought Alonso, but I think Red Bull did make the right call at the end of the day to pit Perez. Maybe it might have been too early, but I just feel that I think especially with Perez pitting, I think he pitted around lap 19, if I'm not mistaken, for the hards, and especially with all the punches happening especially they saw with the Bottas, and then obviously we would see with Norris, Russell, and Latifi later on. I think they would have had to eventually pit Perez, I think if Perez did go for one stopper when he pitted 19, I think the tyres would have gone and Alonso would have still stayed ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, the gap in the end was 2.9 seconds, which isn't much at all. That VSC, again, I think makes a big difference. So it's possible he could have caught him. However, I think that's Red Bull going for constructors' points, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was kind of like, it was more the safe option. We're not going for whatever it was, 15 or bust. It's
15 or 12.
Yes, exactly.
And we'll come on to it later, but that did make a difference in the Constructors' Championship because obviously Bottas retires and Mercedes only get 25 to Red Bull's, oh god, maths,
31.
31.
Yep.
Is it 31?
Yeah,
oh no, it is. I think
19 for Verstappen and 12 for Perez.
19 for Verstappen, 12 for Perez. Why am I doubting the Morse and the engineering student on maths? I do PPE. What is this? But very good performance. I mean, I was very happy to see Alonso back on the podium. He's not been my favourite driver. I think he whines a bit too much, or he has whined a bit too much. But it is good to see, and it brings us equal with last season in terms of the number of different podium sitters, which I don't know about you, feels weird. Maybe it's because there's less races or more races this season, but last season it felt like you were getting a different podium sitter every other race. This one feels like a bit different.
I'm not so sure. I don't agree with you on that one. I think I thought almost the other way around. I didn't expect there to be that many. Or,
last season or this season?
No, I didn't. I still think there were lots, but not quite as many as there were.
Yeah.
Whereas this time I thought kind of the midfield's closed up and there's been more competition. But we haven't seen people like... Did Stroll get a podium last year?
Yes.
Yes, and he hasn't got one this year.
So the people on the podium this year have been the Red Bulls, the Mercedes, the Ferraris and the McLarens, the Alpines, and then
Sebastian Vettel,
Vettel,
George Russell in that race.
That wasn't a race. Vettel, Russell, and Gasly are the three.
13.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then last season it was both the Ferraris, both the Mercedes, both the Red Bulls, both the Racing Points, both the Alpines. Yes, both the Alpines. Oh gosh. Oh, I'm so close. 10. 3 more. What other teams were there? AlphaTauri.
Surely AlphaTauri
Gasly was
didn't
on.
get any.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, it was everyone.
Yeah. Oh yes, at Monza.
Yeah, it was everyone except the bottom 3 teams and Kvyat. It was all of the. So it was all of everyone except the Williams, the Alfa Romeos, and the Haas's plus Kvyat. And even Kvyat came 4th at Imola. I'm a bit sad he didn't get a podium. I would like to see him because I feel like if you're in a it felt like everyone was getting their turn. It was always like if Nico Hulkenberg had been on the grid, he was fairly close at some point. Not fairly close. He qualified 3rd. Oh, one of the races.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
He did. I think he did qualify 3rd. I can't remember where.
It's my biggest unhappy in F1 that Hulkenberg never got a podium. But we've been sidetracked. I guess, going back to the original question, happy to see Alonso on the podium.
Yes, obviously.
Why would I not be?
Exactly. And we will take another break there. That has sort of been the racing bit of the Qatar Grand Prix.
Yeah, and we've not exactly kept on track, have we? So.
No. It wasn't the most interesting one, but after the break, we'll come to some of the championship implications. Both drivers and constructors. And we're back for the second half of the hour, second half of the 2 hours, looking at the Qatar Grand Prix, but this time looking at the championship implications for the race, starting at the front, because we haven't discussed the two front runners this show. I forgot the word. I'm forgetting all the words today. We haven't discussed the two front runners this show, and it is boiling down to them. To be honest, all that matters now is the battle between Hamilton and Verstappen. Everything else is a bit of a slideshow. It's coming to the crux. So obviously, as we spoke about at the start, Verstappen coming from 7th, gets up to 2nd. Then a bit later we spoke about how they just drove away from the rest of the field. After that, it was basically going to finish 1-2 with a Hamilton victory. His car was faster than the Red Bull this race, and Hamilton could just manage the gap. And when Verstappen pits, Hamilton just pits a lap later. It was fairly boring at the front. Yeah,
you need that gap. It needs to close down to 2 or 3 seconds, or you need the Red Bull to be faster, or you need Bottas or Perez to get in there, or I don't know what else has happened this season. Hamilton ditches it in a wall, Verstappen's tyre blows. You need something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it is just status quo, isn't it?
And then we got what we were all expecting at the end. Verstappen pits on the penultimate lap for soft tyres, does the fast lap. You can't even, I'm a Hamilton fan. I can't, obviously they're going to do that. You can't complain about it. It's a new thing. I don't like that it distorts the winning margin. That's my only complaint about it, but that's because I'm a massive nerd. And I like pure winning margins. I like Hamilton's biggest winning margin is a minute. His second biggest is 30 seconds in Russia. I like them to be pure, and it's distorting it because obviously Verstappen does an extra pit stop. But that's my only proper, it's not even a proper complaint, it's my only complaint about it. But then that means Hamilton 8 points behind going in to Saudi Arabia. Who do you think is going to win it?
Can we rewind just one thing? I just want to say one thing about and it's me whinging again, because that's my key role here, I think. But the fastest lap really works in racing like touring cars or like Formula E, where lap times remain fairly consistent throughout. But the gap between what you can achieve in a car that's got full fuel load and no fuel load on softs versus hards, with the track kind of evolution that happens, I just, every single fastest lap will be set at a time in the race that all the teams can predict. Whether it's because the track is drying or because they've had time to pit and the fuel's gone, which is just a shame because it's just whoever has a 25-second gap at that point. So I wouldn't use fastest lap. It's annoying, but
no, actually, that's another thing. I'm annoyed because he would have got a Grand Slam out of it.
It does make that one weirder as well, doesn't it?
Because led all the laps. And I feel like I like Grand Slams. I just like the stats. Verstappen's had one this season in Austria.
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
Because I think he was so far ahead, I think he might have just pitted for new tyres regardless.
Yeah.
Other drivers, I think he was close in Monaco. I think there might have been a pit stop that stopped him. It's the fastest lap is the difficult bit now to get, because obviously someone's going to pit from realistically in a completely normal race, the driver in fourth out of the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Mercedes is going to pit for the fastest lap. And if you're in fourth, you can't win the Grand Slam. So nothing you can really do about it. I mean, what do you think of the whole fastest lap thing?
I mean, yeah, firstly about that whole just like pitting on the penultimate lap and stuff like that, that's annoying, but I think for me the only redeeming factor is that it's just a nice little sideshow at the end, especially if it's a really boring race, just to see somebody go for a fastest lap. Just a little tiny bit extra. It's like,
yeah,
something that I would say is the only sort of redeeming quality. But yeah, I'm with you guys in terms of fastest lap not really being what it should.
Okay, and now we'll come back to my question because I jumped ahead a bit.
I've had time to think now, haven't I?
Yeah. You just did it, so you could think about it. So yeah,
I wanted to whinge, to be fair.
I mean, it was a valid thing, and I'd still like the fastest lap point. It's just gonna have to be a thing I'm gonna have to deal with. I think it introduces a level to the championship. Like Massa would have won the championship in 2008 if the fastest lap had been in place. Apparently,
yeah, but with a
and then
point
it all changes. And but we come to it, and 8 points. 8 points the gap. 2 races to go. Realistically, the way it will come down to if it's still going on in Brazil, if the ideal way, realistically, is it's going to be the Hamilton losing by 2, losing by 1, or drawing, unless Saudi Arabia is like insane. It will be a 2-point deficit, 1-point deficit, 0-point deficit, and it's going to come down to whoever wins in Abu Dhabi wins the championship. Which
might come down to whoever wins qualifying in Abu Dhabi, right?
They've done
depending on how the track
I'm hoping the track layout, I'm hoping the track changes will help. But Hamilton, 8 points behind. They're putting back in his Brazil engine. As we know, that is the most powerful thing on this earth. So realistically, Hamilton maybe wins that, but we don't know. But my question to you is, now with 2 races to go, who wins the championship?
Oh, that is actually a really, really difficult one.
Or do you, I mean, if you think it's still too close to call at this point?
No, we're making decisions, and you're doing it as well.
Oh no, I am.
Verstappen. There you go. No justification. They've both, anything could happen now. It could, and maybe will come down to DNFs, or just something going wrong. And generally, things haven't gone wrong for Verstappen so much, especially in the second half of the season. If it does come down to that, I'm just going to pick the driver who's currently ahead.
All right, Verstappen.
I'm more of a Verstappen fan myself, but I might have to say I'm going to edge it a bit more towards Hamilton, especially with that engine coming in Saudi Arabia. And I don't know if Max will be able to stay relatively close to Hamilton, which is probably not the case. And then with Abu Dhabi also being a very Mercedes track as well. Yes, Verstappen did dominate last year, but that was because A, Lewis Hamilton just got out COVID, and B, they did turn on the power on the Mercedes engines, which is why Max dominated the end of Abu Dhabi last year. So I would probably give it to Hamilton, give it advantage Hamilton going into the last 2 races, and potentially may just taking the championship at least just like 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, I will answer. I will initially say that I think whoever wins Saudi Arabia, if it is one of the 2, will win the championship. But I'll give a definitive answer in that I think Hamilton will win Saudi Arabia, because the engine, I think, is just going to have a massive effect. I think Mercedes have played a masterstroke in getting that 5th engine when they didn't necessarily need to take that penalty.
No.
Obviously, it's all down to Lewis Hamilton being able to make up those 5 extra places, along with the 20 he already lost. Maybe there is something on the rear wing, but Red Bull's rear wing looks a bit suspect as well. But I just think, unless something crazy happens, Hamilton wins it. But I guess the last question on between the 2 before we move on, if we get to Abu Dhabi and there is a gap of 2, 1 or even 0 points, because Verstappen wins let's say they both DNF at Abu Dhabi, Verstappen wins in all three of those situations, so he's got one extra win on countback. Do you think that a Prost, Senna, a Schumacher Hill, a Schumacher Villeneuve is possible? Especially with, we'll come on to this in the next segment, how acrimonious it is between Red Bull and Mercedes. You think, not will it happen, because I imagine that might be a prediction when we do ours after Saudi Arabia, but do you think it's possible?
I mean, anything's possible, right? If it happens, I'm gonna like go and throttle a steward or something. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. You can imagine, like, this season they've not given any quarter, right? But can you imagine coming into the final race if you know that you both crash out?
It's mainly, I think, I was probably, well, it's not biased because it would be realistically, unless Saudi Arabia puts Hamilton in the lead, like, there is actually, yeah, if like Verstappen comes third and then puts Hamilton in the lead, do you, like, it's more likely it's going to be Verstappen being the bad guy in a way. So do you think, actually I'll add that as well, do you think it's more likely with Verstappen on Hamilton or Hamilton on Verstappen?
I would say Verstappen on Hamilton. By far Verstappen's the more aggressive driver of the two, but I mean, I'm not ruling out Hamilton or Verstappen, but I just feel it's just more likely the other way around. Something would just happen. I mean, looking at all the times that come close to each other all season. Imola was Verstappen closing the door on Hamilton. Silverstone, I will probably just say that's equal between the two of them. Brazil was also Verstappen closing the door on Hamilton, and then Italy was literally Verstappen diving in on Hamilton. So I'm not saying all of them were strictly Max's fault, but it's just more because Max being aggressive on Hamilton is the reason why they've come together more most of the time this year.
Wow. It'll be, Twitter would actually like collapse. F1 Twitter would, I think, just all pass away.
I mean, they're going to anyway. It's just gonna, like, I don't know, it will crash Twitter servers or something. They'll have to ban like half the people active on Twitter at the end of the race. Because,
well, then you think about what the stewards do, and the stewards might play a role. Because
I hate this. I hate talking about this. I don't even want to think about it. I just want it to be very clear who wins in the final race.
Right, I think it will. I'm not saying that either of them is going to crash into the other.
I have a horrible feeling that.
Oh no, it's 2021. This is just how it's going to go. But then the stewards come in. You'd have to surely you'd have to, if it looks really deliberate, if it's like on the level of a 97 and 1990 at Suzuka where Senna very much crashed into Prost, you'd have to disqualify whoever's coming out best in that, wouldn't you? I think this is going to be, surely this is something the FIA is going to be drilling into those two drivers. Whoever's in the lead of the championship, if you crash into your competitor and it looks deliberate in any way, shape or form, you are being disqualified from this championship. Surely that's the position they've got to take.
There is precedent, is there not?
Yeah.
But that is 24, 25-year-old precedent. And where do you draw the line? How deliberate is deliberate? And how much of the driver is willing to push that, and how much of the stewards going to push back on it? I just hope we don't find out.
No. Chinmay, any last words?
No, I mean, let's just see what happens. I think that's what it is. You're not going to know until what happens.
I don't want to say it will happen, but like Jack said, it feels like that's the ultimate zenith of what has been a crazy, crazy season. But that is sort of the only driver conflicts that we've had, or that we're having at this race. Obviously, it's the one that really matters. But we'll come back after the break and we'll talk about some of the team conflicts, two of which may have sorted themselves out over this last race. Again, one of my favourites. We're back on Raw 12:51 a.m. Warwick F1 show, looking at the team battles for the race, I guess. The inter-team rivalries, and it seems that there's, or not intra-team rivalries. Seems like there's 3 left now. 2 of which, as I said before the break, look to have sorted themselves out. We'll start with those 2, and then we'll start with the more not inconsequential one, but the one that is worth the less money, I guess. Alpine versus AlphaTauri. You'd have to say at this point, 25 points is the knockout blow.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? How many points are they on? I think Alpine are on 137, which points them... oh, God.
Yeah, if you keep waffling, Chinmay will find out the answer.
I'm... Okay, I'll bet money on it. 137 and 112. I think that's what
I think you're right as well.
Okay, anyway, point being, that's averaging out at about, what, 8 points a race?
Yeah.
25 points is too much of a gap with 2 races to go.
Yeah. And, well, we talked about Alpine a bit. Ocon, good performance in 5th. 3rd and 5th. Alonso, obviously. AlphaTauri, it's looking so good for them. Gasly on the front row, Tsunoda in the top 10. Then it just all falls apart.
I mean, let's be honest. This P5 championship between Alpine and AlphaTauri is just more Alpine versus Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, and I think I can still see. For context, I can still see our rankings, and I still think Gasly has been a bit hard done by in 5th. And that is the problem, as you were saying earlier. It's very hard to judge how good the AlphaTauri is, because Yuki Tsunoda isn't that good. That must be the biggest discrepancy between teammates.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely on our board we've put Tsunoda in 18th. But yeah, I'd agree with you in general as well. I mean...
Or maybe Russell.
Yeah, Russell and Latifi is another big one. But obviously that's changing next year, and AlphaTauri is not, so... yeah, I mean, we'll see Bottas and Zhou next year. That'll be something else. But yeah, no, it is really difficult to tell where those 2 midfield cars are at, really.
Well, I think 25 points now, sort of the killer blow. Hang on. So where did Alonso came 4th in Hungary?
Yes.
So they got how many points in Hungary? 37 plus 25 here. So they've got 62 of their 137 points. They've got almost half of their points in 2 races.
Yeah, but that's what it's like for the lower teams, isn't it? I mean, Gasly went and won a race last year, and I can't remember how many points AlphaTauri got, but I think it was only low hundreds. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Gasly's been on the podium again this year, hasn't he?
He went, Baku.
Yeah, he's been more consistent, but generally for those teams that are scoring lower on the points scale, it does tend to be you suddenly get a massive load of points in 1 or 2 races.
Exactly.
Williams are a great example of that, right? 2 races and they scored 20 out of their 22 points.
Was it Hungary and Belgium?
Spa, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well...
What are we talking about again?
It was just the battle between AlphaTauri and Alpine.
Oh,
but,
yeah, knockout blow.
That one's...
We're all agreed on that.
Yeah, we all agree,
100% knockout
Alpine.
blow.
The next one, McLaren and Ferrari, and I think we're all in agreement that it's probably going to be Ferrari, unless McLaren do
I don't know what that move is called, but
a Monza again.
I mean, Saudi Arabia does look like it might suit in the McLaren because of the straight line speed you need of that track. But
Yeah, and it has been the triple header. What was it? 47 points for Ferrari,
yeah,
and 4 for McLaren,
yeah.
which that's like low midfield levels. I think even Alfa Romeo have got like 2 points or something.
Yeah.
What's the point gap between McLaren and Ferrari at the moment?
Right now it is 39.5 points between Ferrari and McLaren. Ferrari got 297.5 and McLaren have got 258.
Wow. You knew that all off the top of your head, Chinmay.
Yeah, definitely.
No phone in front of you or anything.
Yeah,
but yeah,
definitely don't have the app in front of me.
Unless we do get like another Monza. then we're not going to get it. And it's been partially unlucky. Norris puncture in both Brazil and Qatar, and then Ricciardo's just been a bit poor.
I mean, I think it's not just that. I think apparently, from what I'm mistaken, Ricciardo's race was properly ruined, because he had to do extreme fuel saving. He had proper fuel problems throughout the whole race on Sunday as well.
Yeah, and there's just, it's a bit of a shame because it looks so close and then it's just sort of gone away.
It has really gone away. Yeah, I mean, it was Norris dominated anyway, and
Norris has sort of dropped off.
I mean, now Leclerc's only 1 point behind Norris in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah. Well, we might have to make some changes on our driver ratings.
Don't say that.
We're gonna rate everything for this season over the winter break. Well, finally, we'll come on to the one, let's be honest, that really matters, and the one that's still the most alive in Red Bull versus Mercedes. And when I say alive, it's properly bitter. What's the gap these days?
4 points?
5 points.
5 points. Okay, my bad.
We could very easily see the first constructor victory that doesn't win the Drivers' Championship since 2008, realistically.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, of course we can. There's a 5 point gap there and an 8 point gap in the other one. So, yeah, it really depends on Bottas and Perez, I think. Obviously, if there's a big DNF for one of the top two, then that make a massive difference. But if you do want it to go the way that Will says and have that split between the driver and the constructor, then yeah, you're looking at what those number two drivers are doing. Yeah,
and I mean, I asked about the Drivers' Championship constructors winner.
If I've said Verstappen, I'm going to have to go Red Bull, I think.
I reckon it will be Red Bull, to be fair.
I think Red Bull as well. I think Hamilton might win it, but I do think Red Bull, especially... like you said, it does depend on the second drivers. If one of them DNFs... Well, like we saw, there was... what difference? It was 31 versus 25. That's 8 points. That's bigger than the margin is now. And we'll focus on also off the track quickly as our final thing for the Qatar Grand Prix between Red Bull and Mercedes. So Red Bull still complaining about Mercedes' rear wing. Red Bull's rear wing needing to be fixed for, I think, the 700,000th time in the last 5 races. Both of their rear wings seem to have issues, and Red Bull have been very vocal in that they will complain about Mercedes, seemingly just when Mercedes are too far ahead of them, because they seem fine with it this week, and were just they were very vocal before the race, and then as soon as they saw that the gap wasn't too far, they were like, "Oh, we'll stop talking now."
Yeah, I think. We are going to go on to this, but I think this weekend Christian Horner was probably too busy in the steward's office this weekend.
Christian Horner. Yep.
That's a conspiracy theory. I thought that was my job.
Go on then.
I'm going to counter it with my own conspiracy theory. No, I'm not. I could. There's people on Twitter who are suggesting that Mercedes are turning up or turning down how illegal they're doing based on their gap to Red Bull, but I don't think that's...
yes. That makes no sense.
It does not.
I mean, you can look through the Instagram comments, especially just spamming illegal engine.
Oh dear.
It's a new... I'm sorry, I don't understand what goes through people's heads. It's a newer engine. It's going to be quicker. These engines were designed to last for 8 races. It was a 3 allocation.
Yeah, if you're lucky, because it was 3 allocation for last year, right? 7, and they've not been allowed to develop them this year.
Yeah.
So they're really realistically looking to do 5 races.
So yeah,
maybe 6.
But they were aiming for 8 at the start of the season. Mercedes have got 2 left, effectively. One of which has run, I want to say, 3 races in Turkey, Austin, and now at Qatar. One of which has run 1 race in Brazil. Realistically, they can run the Brazil one for the final 2 races at very high power levels, and the risk of a retirement from an engine failure is low. That is why it's so much quicker. Red Bull, on the other hand, have run 1 engine, I think. Maybe if we say they interchanged it at 1 or 2 races since Russia. How many races have there been since Russia?
Lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been 6 races now. Since
Maximum of 6, realistically probably about 5. They'll have attained, I imagine Russia, maybe they're one before Russia they used for a final race. Realistically, 5 or 4. They're not going to take another engine. They probably can't afford to now. So that engine will really go 6 or 7 races. So that's at the end of its life cycle. That is why Mercedes are quicker. Their engines are just newer.
I mean, not just that, the Mercedes engines are just genuinely more powerful than the Honda wants to begin with anyway.
Yeah.
And we're at the opposite of Mexico in that all the desert races are pretty much like no altitude at all.
Yeah. Flat as a pancake.
Yeah. I advocate for no altitude. Unless it's skiing, I need that. But we'll come on to, as he said, one final thing. Christian Horner. I'm not going to call him Karen Horner, even though I really want to, but I'm impartial.
He lies.
One whining, not whine, oh, sorry. I didn't even mean to do that. Having an issue with the stewarding and saying it was a rogue marshal and then being called to the steward's office, you can sort of understand why they don't. Questioning the integrity of the marshals, especially as they volunteer, give up their time to put on a safe race with, I think, very little payment. Like, if they're being paid at all, you don't want to be questioning their integrity. I think that probably stepped over a line into it was not nice to see.
Yeah, you understand it, right? It's frustration. But I think at the moment, whatever is going on between the two teams is just like, there's no nuance to it anymore. Like, I that sounds really dumb. Like, I'm sure most people want, like, getting at each other's throat, but I want, like, the passive aggressive, like, just little snips here and there, and you're just like, yeah, I know what you're getting at.
And
at the moment, they're just trying to kill each other.
Yeah,
right?
I'll come to you, Chinmay. I think it's more. I am biased. I'm not even gonna like. You shouldn't say you're not biased, especially if you've got a driver in the race for the titles. I'm a Hamilton fan. I'm a Mercedes fan, but I feel like, especially to the media, and maybe that's because they're giving him more attention, Christian Horner's been been complaining more than Hamilton, complaining more than Toto, whereas Mercedes have been a bit more calm.
I mean, as a Red Bull fan, I'll say, yeah, Christian Horner has definitely been complaining a lot more than Mercedes, but I'll probably disagree with that, especially in the last couple of races. I think Toto Wolff has been, I would say not equally, but I think in his own way, he's also been yeah, I mean, that whole meme thing just says it all. Do you
think Toto's maybe more like what Jack was saying? He's a bit more like passive aggressive. I know he said on Friday that he didn't expect the right to review to be seen, but they'll change their style. That's a bit more like the Jack passive aggressive style, whereas Horner's just coming out all guns blazing like, we're gonna protest them, their engine, their team is illegal. Yeah, that's the proper Red Bull style. I say they just go for like guns blazing with straight out complaining. Doesn't matter. Whereas I think Mercedes, they're just a lot more passive aggressive in comparison. It's just a really great TV serial at this point. I might actually watch Drive to Survive this season. I don't normally watch it, but I think, especially if we do see a lot of this Mercedes-Red Bull rivalry, then it might be worth watching. I mean, Jack, actually, I'll come to both of you. Any final words as we wrap this up?
Bring on the next 2 races.
Yeah, we've got a break. Oh, it feels weird.
No, it feels... I don't want to watch the last 2 races. It's like everything I can just like see it, everything going wrong. Something will happen. I don't want a good title fight anymore. It's too nerve-wracking.
Chinmay,
any last words?
Nah, I think it's just at this fate, he got the great championship, and then he got let's say daily soap between Corner, Marco, and Toto Wolff. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've ended our first race in the desert, first of 3. The sun is setting on the F1 season for 2021, but remains to be seen who will land the final blow in the battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. After the break, we'll come back and talk about a bit of news that happened before Qatar, though we didn't get time to talk about, that being Guan Yu Zhou coming into Alfa Romeo. And then we'll also do our predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But first, we have Little Mix with Cut You Off. Welcome back to Raw 12:51 AM, the Warwick F1 show. We finished Qatar. We're a bit earlier than normal, so we'll just quickly dive into some of the news. Obviously, we've talked about a lot of the car news, but this is 2022 driver news, with Guan Yu Zhou finishing the puzzle of the 2022 grid. There we go. Replacing Antonio Giovinazzi, coming up from UNI Virtuosi in Formula 2, where he is currently second in the standings behind Oscar Piastri. And I think I've set the scene there. Deserved or not?
No. Just no. Like, no.
Have you watched the Josh Ravel video on it?
The recent one?
Yeah.
No, I haven't watched that one. However, I think things, regardless of what he said, things are very clear. Joe's in his third year in Formula 2. He started off well. He was 6th in his first year, I think. And then he improved to 5th. And now he is 2nd?
Yes.
But in 2nd in a kind of like...
Piastri is a very runaway leader.
Exactly. There's a pack of people much closer to Zhou than Zhou is to Piastri. Oscar Piastri has won F3 and now he's about to win F2 in 2 years. Just flat out. Nothing else. If that's not talent enough to gamble on putting someone in a car where no one knows, how to drive that 2022 car, then I don't know what is. And I know Alpine don't exactly control the Alfa Romeo seat, and that maybe there's a bit of negotiation there because Zhou himself has gone, and his managers are there. But surely to God, Alpine are like, this is a future world. Okay, such an overused thing, right? But he's gonna be the next Leclerc or Norris or Russell.
He's won F3 first season, won F2 first season.
We assume that
he's very far ahead.
Yeah. It annoys me that if he wins, he's not getting a seat next year. That's bonkers to me, right? That's bonkers. Why would you ever put anyone in a situation where they want to actively lose the championship?
My only thing, right, this is a theory, not a conspiracy theory. Do you think he's being groomed for Alpine, Piastri? Do you think that Alonso next year turns 41, he can't have that many seasons left? Piastri's a young driver. He's what, 9 months? Is he 19?
He's 22.
22.
He's not that young.
Well, that's quite old. Well, even so,
I think he might be 21.
You'd think Piastri is the natural successor to Alonso. Keep him within the family. If Alonso, we know what he's like when the cars get slower. He is old. Like, you can't not say that he is. At worst, maybe Piastri has to wait 2 years. I personally would have gone for keeping Giovinazzi, because it seems like surely you'd want Teo Porcher in 23, which might be replacing Bottas depending on how long he lasts.
Yeah, but both Zhou and Alonso are out of contract at the end of 2022. I think a lot of drivers are going to be, because there's that 1 year in the car. I think a lot of the drivers don't want that more than that 1 year in the car, because they want to see where the car is. If you're the next Haas or the next Williams, you don't want to be there for very long, do you? Yeah. So, yes, a lot of contracts are going to be out that year. This year's silly season has been a little bit silly. Next year should be completely bonkers. So, yes, I do think Porsche should be in that Sauber Alfa Romeo seat, and I do think, hopefully, they will notice that Piastri has come from nowhere, won 2 things, and then they won't let him disappear. They won't let him do a... Because that's not even a Nick de Vries, because Nick de Vries won in his 3rd year on F2, right?
Yeah. Something like that, yeah.
It might... I don't know.
No, yeah, he did.
Yeah, okay. No one has done this. Verstappen won, F4, and then got, or something like F3 or GP3.
Verstappen's
or
never
something.
won. I don't think Verstappen's ever led a single-seater.
Yeah, this is his first time. If he wins the F1 Championship, it's going to be his first single-seater win.
And I think this is his first ever year. It's the first time he's ever led a single-seater title. He drove in F3 and was quite a way behind Esteban Ocon. I think that was just DNFs and probably inexperience as well, and then went straight into F1. It's the first time he's led a single-seater title.
Anyway, the point is, no one's done this. No one has done this. I don't think. Who's won in the rookie year?
I think Leclerc did.
And Russell.
In GP2.
And Russell.
Russell won F2 in his rookie year as well.
But he didn't win F3, did he?
I don't know about F3.
I don't think he did.
I want to say they'd not formalised F. It wasn't.
Yeah, but there was
F3
GP3.
Yeah, F3 was introduced in 2018, so that was the year Russell won F2.
Anyway, point being, he's talented. Zhou is... He's still got some talent, but he's not... He's like the Latifi Tsunoda level.
He's not exactly a showstopper.
I think the thing I'd say is he finished behind Mazepin. He finished behind Mazepin.
It's where you are in like your development, isn't it?
True.
That was Mazepin's third year?
I don't know.
Maybe it was his second.
It's very confusing.
I don't know. He's not good. He shouldn't be in that seat.
Well, so I mean, it's money. Like, there's no question about it. Do you think, Chinmay, Zhou should be there?
No, but I do see a good thing from Piastri's side of things. Yes, I mean, from the looks of things right now, in 2023, there's going to be a lot of seats open. Probably, like, you got the likes of Fernando Alonso retiring, so he's got a chance in Alpine. And maybe this is a far-fetched thing, but maybe, just maybe, there could be a chance in somewhere like Red Bull. Because obviously we know Red Bull is notorious for destroying junior careers, but that's a story for another day. But then, at the moment, I don't really see any other junior drivers at the moment who's actually ready for the step to F1. And
yeah,
even if Fernando Alonso stays in 23, I think he can, especially Red Bull, they don't. I think the only reason why Tsunoda's there is because Red Bull do not have any other drivers right now that's ready to be in F1. So maybe Piastri could snatch an AlphaTauri sort of seat or something.
I think if you're good enough, teams will recognise it. If Piastri wins F3, wins F2, a team would be crazy not to sign him, especially a midfield to lower midfield. And as soon as you're in at that level, or that level of like competitiveness, I think it's very hard to drop out. As for Zhou, it's money. Like, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, everything changes. Alfa Romeo is suddenly the best team in 2022. Bottas wins the world title, but we don't know, right? We're running close to the end of the show, so I'll play one more song and then we'll dive into our predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So here is James Ivey with Headset Go. And we are back for the final segment of the Warwick F1 show for this week, and we're doing our predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But first, we've got to look at our Qatar Grand Prix predictions. Now, I will be the judge this week because I, as you may remember, had to dash off before we got to the predictions, so I haven't heard them. So, well, I mean, who's reading them out?
I've got them here.
Okay.
So, pick heads or tails, and that's the one I'll pick. I'll read out first.
I'll just go top to bottom. I don't know what. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was boring. Okay, so team one. In fact, I'll read one and Chinmay, you read one, and then you can choose whichever. So, team one was Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, and obviously the actual podium was Hamilton, Verstappen, and Alonso. And then the predictions were Bottas was on pole, he finished third. Both Ferraris beat both McLarens, which did happen. And then Mazepin beat Schumacher in the race, which did not happen.
It's like a minute behind. Though, to be fair, this time I will say that it was probably not his fault. Mazepin. He only had about 20 laps in practice.
That is true.
New track, not an experienced driver, very slow car.
Okay. And I will pass it over to Chinmay to read the bottom ones.
Yep. Okay. And the second team was Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, and the three predictions were Lando Norris top 7 finish, Giovinazzi.
He was 8th, wasn't he? Was he 8th?
Ninth.
I think it was ninth.
It was
Okay.
ninth. Giovinazzi reaching Q3. He was one of the slowest. I think it was like 18th or something like
Yeah,
that.
Q1.
And then Lance Stroll crashes in a competitive session that includes all qualified stations and the race itself.
He didn't. So, second podium is more accurate. They got Hamilton and Verstappen, but the third,
It's so the correct ones were the kind of the podium was a little bit better, and then both Ferraris beat both McLarens. So
I think I'm gonna have to go for Team 1. Just based. Oh no!
Get in.
No,
It's 3-all.
just based on
Last race. It had to come down to the last race. Come on.
yeah, based on the fact that Hamilton, you both got Hamilton. One person got Verstappen. One person got a general prediction, and it was just the Verstappen still being on the podium that swayed it for me. I'm sorry, I picked the wrong one, but you got to be unbiased. 3-all.
All right.
And, oh, we did that quicker. Well, we'll do a preview of Saudi Arabia, a race we, again, never have been to. A chance for Lewis Hamilton to add to his 30 different wins at different racetracks, which is insane. I wanted to get that stat in. 30 wins at 30, I want to say 35?
I think it's something like 35.
35. The only, right?
How do you know this?
Because it's fun.
Okay.
The only tracks he hasn't won at are India, Korea, Valencia, Zandvoort, and Magny-Cours.
And 4 of those have only been raced once, right? 3 of those.
India was
at least a couple of times.
I think India was up to 20. I think India and Korea were up to 2013.
Yeah,
from
India's last one
2010.
was definitely 2013 because
Okay,
Sebastian won his fourth in there.
Magny-Cours was 2007 and 8, and Valencia was up to. I want to say. I think Valencia was like 3 years as well, something like that. And the only one he's not finished on the podium at is India. So 34 podiums at 35 tracks, 30 wins. Don't know about the pole positions, but I'm sure it's. I think it's about 29 or something. Very insane, and he's got a chance to add to it at Saudi Arabia, a track that I think, having had more of a look at it, has Baku potential. In that, I think if you get the right conditions, we could have an absolutely carnage race. Thoughts?
I mean, having a look at this, the circuit we just had at Losail, you'd think that one would be reasonably bad. So, okay, maybe it's better, but it's really hard to look at a track map and say what kind of track is this? Is this going to be good enough? Is this going to be bad? Whatever. Because you look at probably like Spa, and it doesn't look that interesting. Yeah, no, I think it could be, but it could be terrible. So we'll see.
I mean, yeah, it's just. I think it's just personal bias, but I think the track could. I've watched the. They did the preview on the F1 2021 game.
Yeah.
And the track does seem to be really narrow, really narrow. So yeah, there's a potential for a lot of carnage in that race, especially with DRS having in a turn. It was a very turny DRS, you can call it as well.
That's the thing. There's a lot. I think it's more that there's a lot of kinks, I think the drivers can still follow through. I think then, with how demanding or how much aero the cars have got, I honestly think this could be a better one for the current generation of cars, just because they'll be able to follow a lot easier. Well, not easier, but they'll have that downforce so they can follow through corners. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But offline, it'll be dusty as well. So that might play a factor. I mean, has anyone else got...
No, next year's cars with the ground effect should have more aero at high speed and less mechanical grip at low speed. So if it's a really high speed track, then it'll be about the same, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's the second fastest track on the calendar, right? After Monza. And it's got about 30 odd corners. I can't wait to remember all the numbers to them. Like
Yeah.
Hamilton tries to overtake Verstappen into corner 25. It's gonna be a night. I think it'll be a good one. It's at night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Good.
definitely a night race.
It'll be ending with 3 night races, and we should go to the night in Miami. That has been your weekly.
Okay.
That has been your weekly Miami GP. Should be a night
Couldn't
race.
resist.
I very much shoehorn that in there, but deal with it. I host. You can do it next week, and you can not allow me to talk about the Miami Grand Prix.
Just switch your mic off
Yeah.
whenever you try.
So we're coming to our predictions now. I'll give you the honour, Jack, of going first.
Okay, well, I'll go for podium first, and then I'll do my 3 in a minute. So I'm going to go for Bottas wins, Verstappen second, and Leclerc third.
Ooh. Okay.
And you'll see why.
That's a spicy one.
We've gone boring. We've just gone Hambo bot.
Oh, like in that order as well.
Yeah, in that
Oh,
order.
Boring.
I
So-
just think it's the rehearsal for the finale. We don't want it to be interesting. We want it to be a boring race, so Abu Dhabi matters so much more. I think that's the way I look at it.
Okay. I'm going to explain why I've gone Bottas, Verstappen, Leclerc. It's because my first prediction is Verstappen wins the championship at this race. If Hamilton DNFs, he wins it anyway. If he's outside 6th, I think Verstappen has to win, and I think if he's 9th or 10th-ish, and the fastest lap makes a difference anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that Hamilton DNFs and Max Verstappen wins the championship, because I think there's a chance that maybe he
You can't put all your eggs in one
yeah,
basket.
exactly. I think that's a fairly bold one.
Okay.
I'm sure you'll agree on that one. Then I've also gone for Ricciardo out in Q1, and then this one I'm not sure if I'm allowed. I haven't looked it up or not, but I would like to see Hamilton keep his rainbow coloured.
Oh, he's already confirmed that.
We didn't have to say that.
But I can't just allow
Okay.
you to have a prediction. He has already confirmed
Okay,
that.
that's fine.
Right, I'll let you think of another while me and Chinmay read ours out. Going on the theme of chaos, we've gone for 4+ red flags over the weekend.
Hang on, what sessions? Just any session at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we've gone 4. We were originally going to go 3, but we thought it's probably fairer if we're including practice as well. Ferrari secure P3 in the Constructors' Championship, so they outscore McLaren by... What's the gap?
I think they would need to outscore by 4 or 5 points to be completely ahead.
Wait, what's the gap? Is it 37?
39.
39. So yeah, they need to outscore them by 5 points. So
Okay.
we think Ferrari secure P3 in the Constructors. And then this is a Chinmay one, and we were talking about this during the break. It's very specific. P7 exactly for Fernando Alonso.
Okay.
Very specific.
Sure.
You want to explain why, or just a...
Otherwise, why not go wild?
Yeah, why not? Right, you got a final one, Jack? Quickly.
No. Any driver has an issue with their drink bottle. There you go.
All right. Yeah,
I've gone completely off the chart.
So we'll just read them out quickly again. I've gone for Team Raw, has gone for Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, 4+ red flags. Ferrari secure P3 and P7 in the race exactly for Alonso, while Team Warwick F1 Sock have gone for
Bottas, Verstappen, Leclerc on the podium. Verstappen wins the championship here. Ricciardo's out in Q1, and then any driver on the grid has an issue with the bottle. I'm going to say in the race.
Yep, and that's it. We've got to potentially get out of here quite quickly, but thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Chinmay, for coming on. Any last words quickly?
Well, thank you.
Let's have a really great end of the season, and hope it doesn't end in Saudi.
When Hamilton and Verstappen get disqualified, we'll be welcoming Bottas as a first-time world champion. Thank you for listening.